Massey and I have talked about introducing an impeachment resolution against Pam Bondi.
The victims' lawyers have been in contact with me, and collectively they know there are at least 20 names of men who are accused of sex crimes in the possession of the FBI.
There are at least a couple of honest congresspeople, the ones who started all of this, who are saying, we're not going to mess around with you guys. We're going to enforce the law.
All right, quick reset. Congress passed a law that was supposed to force transparency on the Epstein files. And now the DOJ is talking about a slow rollout instead of a full release. Some lawmakers are calling that non-compliance, and they're escalating impeachment talks, contempt talks, the whole thing. Let's walk you through what's being claimed here and what the actual law allows and what we should be watching for next without getting lost in speculation.
Today marks the deadline for the DOJ to make the Epstein files public.
We're going to release several 100,000 documents today. I expect that we're going to release more documents over the next couple of weeks. So today, several 100,000, and then over the next couple weeks, I expect several 100,000 more. There's a lot of eyes looking at these, and we want to make sure that when we do produce the materials we're producing, that we're protecting every single victim.
Yeah, nonsense and illegal. They have to release all of the files today. If they don't, they could be in some legal trouble. In fact, we had Representative Ro Khanna on the show yesterday, and he outlined a scenario where Pam Bondi might be arrested if they don't release all the files. But wait till you see who's combing through the files at the end here. Maybe gives away the game as to what was actually happening with Epstein. So Yaz has the details now.
All right, so a month ago, President Donald Trump signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act into law, and that started a 30-day timer for Attorney General Pam Bondi to release all the documents related to Epstein. But as you just saw, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, he has stated that the administration is going to roll out the documents over time rather than just release them all at once. That is not what they're supposed to be doing. So we received only some of the files today, and we will talk about what is in them in just a moment. First, let's watch Representative Ro Khanna explain what consequences Pam Bondi could face for concealing those Epstein files.
So when we talk about prosecution, we're not talking about tomorrow because the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. So it's Pam Bondi's not going to arrest herself as the Attorney General. Would consequences begin if the Democrats take the House in 2026?
Well, they could begin before that. I mean, Massey and I have talked about introducing an impeachment resolution against Pam Bondi, where we could get Republicans breaking and supporting that if the release of the files is not in compliance with the law. You already have Susie Wiles throwing her under the bus, the White House chief of staff, saying she whiffed. So she is losing support among the Republican caucus. Second, she could be held in inherent contempt of Congress.
Okay, this is the part that sounds cinematic, but it's real constitutional history. Inherent contempt in Congress claims the power to enforce compliancy directly without going through the courts first. Now, let's be honest. The odds of Congress actually doing this are low because of politics, but the threat matters because it's telling you how serious the clash is getting. And here's the key point. If the law says release and the DOJ will do it in batches, then this becomes less about gossip and more about process, compliance, and who gets to control what the public sees.
That means the Sergeant of Arms of Congress could actually arrest her, and there could be a trial in Congress about whether she was transparent. And we are pursuing a number of those things.
All right, so the Epstein Files Transparency Act, it does allow for some redactions. So the Epstein Files Act says the Justice Department may withhold or redact the identities of Epstein's victims and contains exemptions that would allow the DOJ to withhold records that would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution. So here is Representative Thomas Massey explaining how we'll be able to tell whether we're getting the real files or an over-redacted cop-out.
One of the ways we'll know is there are people who have covered this case for years, and I've talked to them in private, and they know what some of the material is that's back there. But the other way that we're going to know is the victims' lawyers have been in contact with me, and collectively they know there are at least 20 names of men who are accused of sex crimes in the possession of the FBI. These would reside in the FD 302 forms.
Now we're getting into the part that actually matters for the audience. How do you verify compliance without guessing? They're claiming there are specific document types, FD 302s, that would typically contain names, allegations, investigative references. Their argument is basically, if a giant drop comes out and there are 0 accused names anywhere, then either 1, everything got over redacted, or 2, we didn't get the full set. And on the national security division piece, let's be careful here. National security can be used legitimately in limited cases, but it also is the easiest umbrella to throw over documents when agencies want maximum discretion. So the real watch item isn't the internet theories. The real watch item is what's withheld, why it's withheld, and whether the explanation matches the law allowed in the redactions.
So if we get a large production on December 19th, and it does not contain a single name of any male who's accused of a sex crime or sex trafficking or rape or any of these things, then we know they haven't produced all the documents. It's that simple.
All right, well, what happens now? Well, under the law, the DOJ has 15 days to turn over its rationale for any documents that it has decided to withhold. We should also mention who is doing the redacting and why, because that is interesting. The Justice Department's National Security Division inherited the redaction work from the FBI. It's surprising to many national security law specialists that that's who's doing the work, given the division's historical emphasis on classified matters and the lack of a nexus between Epstein and national security interests. So, Cenk, there's more to this story, and we will get into what has a little bit of what's been released with the files. Does that suggest that Epstein was connected to intelligence? And this also speaks to a story that we're going to discuss a little bit later. What do you think?
100%. So there's already so many connections to intelligence, and as Yaz alluded to there, check out our video on the latest, where apparently Jeffrey Epstein was in the middle of the Iran-Contra scandal. He was apparently one of the most powerful men on earth without any of us ever knowing about it. But there is no regular citizen in the middle of an Iran-Contra scandal and helping to ship arms back and forth. After reading that story, it becomes 100% clear that he's intelligence. Is it CIA or Mossad? Those are your only two choices. Again, the Israelis brokered the Iran-Contra deal. Of course they did. Okay, but he might be CIA.
All right, here's what I want from you. Do you think this is legitimate victim protection redaction or political damage control dressed up as procedure? Drop your take in the comments. Keep it factual. Keep it clean. And if you want part 2, when the next batch hits, we can compare what changes. Hit like, subscribe, and I will cover the actual content of what's being released line by line.